literature. In my course, I talk about the mechanics of writing a book, also about the business, because people need to understand how they fit in this world. Do you want to self-publish? Do you want to be with a traditional publisher but only do a book a few years? Do you want to do what Lee and I do, being full-time novelists? And people are a bit discouraged, but in researching that to give my students the best information I can, there are more titles published now than ever before. The independent bookshops, I'm speaking primarily about America, I don't know the UK market that well, are burgeoning. We certainly have great sales on ebooks, and I don't think there's anything wrong with ebooks. I prefer paper myself, but no, we've always read, we'll always read. And we have to remember that the novel is a relatively new phenomenon. You know, this guy came from here, Shakespeare, right? That's his name, William Shakespeare. It was all performed. The Greek drama was all performed. Poetry was all performed. And actually sitting down with the book is a relatively new thing, so we're doing fine.
And I mean, are you at all worried about the future of reading?
I'm certainly not worried about the future of story. There is a tremendous appetite for story. Everything is a story. You know, I was in commercial television. We would make commercials, and a 30-second commercial, the best ones work as a story. And they have characters in them, scenario, a resolution, all within 30 seconds. And the hunger for story will never go away. How will that story be delivered is subject to all kinds of different things. Time demands. I remember as a kid, it was typical that you could just sit down and read. For hours at a time, possibly. And now very few people do that. People consume books in a different way. They read for 15 or 20 minutes on the train to work. They maybe get another 15 minutes in their lunch hour. Then before they go to sleep, they read another 15 or 20 minutes. And so to a certain extent, it's a circular process where we have to bear that in mind. How is it consumed, in a way, alters how we deliver it. Because, especially in my books, I try and keep everything clear. Because as a reader myself, I hate it when you pick up a book and some character says something and you think, who was that guy? And you've got to leaf back and figure it out. So you keep everything super clear because you understand people are consuming it now in a different way than before. But story will always be vitally important. You know, who was it? Terry Pratchett said, I think, that instead of calling us Homo sapiens, we should be called Pan-Narrans, in other words, the storytelling ape. Because storytelling is so central to our experience. So I've got no doubt at all the story will always endure. How will it be consumed? Physical books, paper books? And I've been super interested in the progress of e-books, especially from the American perspective, where I have never seen a technology so enthusiastically adopted and tried out in the initial phase than e-book reading in America. I've never seen the public adopt something and try it with such goodwill and open-mindedness. And in 2012, which is now 6 years ago, that was the sort of peak digital in America, where I live in New York, I go on the subway, and I look at what people are reading and how they're reading it. And in 2012, tremendous acceptance of ebooks, which has fallen away. You know, people have tried it, and they have said, you know what, this is pretty good, but not that good. And that's another thing you learn when you're in any kind of media business or any kind of customer-facing business. People, the public, is a stubborn beast. You know, you cannot lead them. They will decide for themselves. And they've decided about ebooks, that they are pretty good, but not great. They're fabulous to travel. And that's how it's basically come down. My metaphor is they are like those tiny tubes of toothpaste. They are essential for travel, but nobody uses them at home. And that's how it's panning out. So the physical book, I think that deep in our souls somehow, deep in our culture, the physicality of a book is very germane, is very central. People talk about going to get a book, going to get it, as if they're hunting it down and like hunter-gatherers, bringing it home triumphantly. Even though that's not a difficult transaction, there's a million in the store, you go and get it. But the triumph almost of you get the book and you have it now, you own it and it's yours, it is tremendously central. So I think physical books are never going to go away. They're subject to all kinds of business pressures that are very difficult to face in terms of price expectation is a big deal. I mean, that really pisses me off that people expect my book, over which I've labored for several months, should be cheaper than a cup of coffee. You know, that really bothers me, and that's partly business mechanism. And books are, because they're cheap and there's no margin in a book, it's not like a handbag or a pair of shoes. So on the high street, the rents are set according to what Sephora sells or Accessorize sells or Coach bags. They set the rental expectation for the shop, and books find that very hard to deal with. So there are all kinds of business pressures. But having said that, in my experience, publishers are like farmers. There has never been a good year. Everything is always a permanent disaster. And so I remain reasonably optimistic simply because of that deeply human characteristic. We want story. We want to consume it. And we will always find a way to deliver it.
Is this the word you got on your passport or your gravestone, but it's storyteller rather than writer?
I would indeed do that, really.
Yeah, I mean, people talk to me about, I remember once I was on Newsnight about some Amazon controversy about Kindle and all of that, and I said, I don't care how somebody consumes my story. I said, my publisher can pay Scarlett Johansson to come over and whisper it in your ear. I don't care how you consume it as long as you hear the story.
Which number do you have to ring to get that?
Whole new meaning for the word is-been. Those, by the way, are the little numbers on the back of the book that you can dial in. As a technical matter, I agree with everything Lee said. As a technical matter, the way I craft my book is I do a long outline. I write very quickly. I produce a 130,000 word manuscript in a month or so, and it's generally, how do I describe it literarily speaking, crap. Because it's clumsy. There are many typos and so forth. So I do the first, and I rewrite a great deal. Probably the first 20 edits I do on the screen, because it's easy to move things around, search and replace if you want to globally change a name or something like that. But then I always print it out and do the last half of the edits on paper. And you would be astonished at how much richer the experience is reading on paper. And do you know how it's inartful in a paragraph to see the same word repeated frequently? That's a famous thing the copy editors always look for. That's why synonyms were invented. And it's amazing how I would have read that on the screen and yet and missed it. And on the basic typos as well, but concept things like that, which tells me that to have a piece of paper with words printed on it is a better reading experience for the reader as well. It's anecdotal. If there are any psychologists or physiologists here who could explain that, but I think I